On the day they first met, Lucy, overflowing with a sense of justice, sent the brown-haired ringleader flying with a single kick. When the bullies claimed the boy's red eyes were a bad omen, she put on an award-winning performance. "Mom, what do I do? Vincent says my red hair is cursed." The kids had never seen anything like it. They dropped the boy's glasses and ran for their lives. "Little brats trying to act tough with me," Lucy muttered. But when she turned around, she saw the boy's hands trembling uncontrollably. An image of a fragile boy who couldn't fend for himself was planted in her mind. So deciding to be a good Samaritan, she walked him home. "Whoa, your house is like a secret library. This is amazing. Can I look around?" A light blush crept onto the boy's cheeks. It was the first time he had ever brought a stranger home. While it felt improper, something in his heart told him it was okay if it was this girl. Just then, Lucy noticed his clothes were soaking wet. Not wanting to be rude by leaving his guest alone, he had just stood there. She suggested he go change, promising she would wait right there. After a moment of hesitation, the boy obediently left, looking around the cottage filled with all sorts of books. Thinking about the boy's quiet, introverted personality, one word came to mind: nerd. Even the glasses were a perfect fit. Just then, a stinky solution on the table caught her eye. Her stomach was rumbling, and she actually wondered if it might be something to eat. "What are you doing?" The boy, now in a fresh set of clothes, suddenly appeared. He had a cold expression. Was he mad because she was touching his stuff? Lucy quickly apologized. This only seemed to confuse the usually stoic boy. "Why are you apologizing? I brought you some cookies." Famished, Lucy's face lit up with happiness. She never expected to eat something so delicious. "Are all the books on these shelves yours?" "A lot of them look really difficult." The moment the topic of books came up, the introverted boy opened up like a floodgate, passionately sharing his unique insights on philosophy. As a self-proclaimed slacker, Lucy felt a little ashamed. Suddenly, the boy was seized by a violent coughing fit. He quickly grabbed the green, poison-like solution. He chugged it without a second thought. Lucy watched with a worried expression. What kind of serious illness required such toxic medicine? But she didn't dare to ask, not wanting to seem nosy. I'm going to head home for a bit," she said. She turned to leave before he could respond. Her abrupt departure left the boy stunned. Did he say something wrong? Was it his rude coughing and medicine-taking during their snack? Or had she already sensed how strange this place was? He hadn't felt this way when his own father and mother abandoned him, or when people called him a monster for his red eyes. But now he felt an incredible sense of loneliness. Just then, the girl returned, carrying a pot of mushroom stew. It turned out she was worried he'd get a stomachache from taking medicine on an empty stomach and had rushed home to cook for him. This was the first time the boy had ever felt cared for by someone else. They exchanged names. After that, they officially became friends. From then on, Reb's little house became their secret base. The more time they spent together, the more Lucy realized how incredibly smart Reb was. With a blush, the boy wished they could continue to live so happily. The two children made a pinky promise to be best friends for life. Just then, Lucy's mom showed up with a freshly baked apple pie, and the three of them enjoyed a wonderful afternoon tea. Before leaving, Lucy naturally patted the boy's head. The innocent Reb was completely smitten, replaying their time together in his head. Lucy later heard from her mom that a festival was coming up, and the grand prize was a travel voucher to the capital. While that was a huge draw for a kid from a small village, Lucy wanted to stay as far away as possible, terrified of getting swept up in the novel's crazy plot. But then she found out the second-place prize was 2.5 million gold coins. With Reb being so brilliant, she figured they could easily win and achieve financial freedom. So the next day, she showed up with more stew. But when she arrived, she saw a strange purple light flashing from the attic. It was the royal magician Radam there to perform a routine check on Prince Reb. He was ensuring he was living quietly and not harboring any inappropriate ambitions. After sending the man away, then Reb opened the door and found Lucy with an unusually grim look on her face. Had she overheard their conversation? Thankfully, Lucy had only noticed a bloodstain on his sleeve and thought he was hurt. She carefully checked him for injuries and breathed a sigh of relief when she found none. "Don't you ever get hurt, you hear me?" A weight lifted from Reb's shoulders. This unfamiliar concern felt incredibly warm. To keep Lucy from getting involved in his dangerous life, he asked her not to go up to the second floor. Lucy respected her friend's wishes, but she made one request of her own. "From now on, you have to open the door for me before I knock 10 times, okay?" They happily sealed the deal. Afterward, Lucy pulled out a flyer for the festival competition and invited him to join her. To her surprise, the knowledgeable Reb seemed hesitant. "It's okay to say no if you don't want to. Don't force yourself. I'll just ask someone else." The thought of Lucy standing next to someone else made his skin crawl. He immediately changed his tune. "I'm not very confident, but I'll try my best." The day of the festival arrived. Reb had actually dressed up for the occasion. Lucy had to admit he looked really handsome. But the weather was sweltering. So they went to his room to look through his wardrobe. It was filled with plaid jackets. They perfectly matched his nerdy persona. But luckily, they found something suitable. "You look so good in that. I was hoping to wear something you'd like," he said. It was a line that could easily be misinterpreted, which was exactly the boy's intention. Soon the two left wearing matching hats. They ran into their friend Domi. When Reb realized Domi was the someone else Lucy had mentioned taking to the festival, at that moment his face fell. He coldly chased the other boy away. Then he nonchalantly invited Lucy into a horse-drawn carriage. The ride was long, and before she knew it, Lucy had fallen asleep on Reb's shoulder. He was left with a heart pounding like a drum and a secret he couldn't dare to speak. They arrived at the festival, and thanks to the multi-talented Reb, Lucy won a ton of prizes. The boy gave everything to her, just to see the happy look on her face. Lucy admitted she was a little charmed but told herself she was just misreading things. "Here, this is for you. Isn't this your favorite? That's exactly why I'm giving it to you. I hope that whenever you see this, you'll remember today." Reb stared at the snow globe in his hands, his heart fluttering uncontrollably. Soon, registration for the main competition began. Lucy spotted a general store and remembered an errand her mom had asked her to run, so they decided to split up for a bit. It was then that Reb saw someone who shouldn't have been there. It was his half-brother Delmar. He was the very person responsible for his family abandoning him. "What are you doing here?" Compared to Reb's cold demeanor, Delmar's happiness seemed genuine. "Brother, why did you disappear?" "I missed you so much, Brother Aurelio." Reb shoved the little kid off him and retorted coldly. "Stop pretending. Why do you think I'm here? If they find out you came to see me, I'll have to move again. Where to next? Hell?" The truth was, Delmar knew nothing about any of this. He just liked his older brother and wanted to be with him. He thought Reb was upset because he hadn't made a more formal visit. "It seems you didn't understand what I said. Don't come back. I don't want to see you again." Just then, Lucy returned. Not wanting her to know the truth, Reb lied and said the boy was lost. Heartbroken, Delmar walked away. But as he did, a magic spell on his cloak suddenly activated. Radam had told him it would only work if his life was in danger. Was his own brother protecting himself against him? At that moment, the two realized the competition had already started. Luckily, there weren't many contestants, so they were allowed to join. Though the first 3 questions were marked as incorrect, they made it into the venue. Lucy tried to comfort Reb, telling him not to be nervous even if he hadn't prepared. To her surprise, the boy was full of energy. Then he answered 10 questions in a row with incredible speed and accuracy. It was astonishing. Soon, it was time for the final tie-breaking question. A long time ago, the previous emperor eliminated all the magicians in the empire, but one last magician fought to the very end. His immense power and spirit so impressed His Majesty that a monument was erected in his honor. What was his name? No one had even heard this story before. Only Reb knew the answer, but he kept quiet, aiming for second place. "Then just tell me the answer," Lucy whispered. "Radam, the last magician was Radam." His voice was so low no one should have heard, but the local lord noticed. 2 kids with a 100% correct answer rate had caught his attention. "Look into them, they might be useful to us." After the competition, they got their bag of gold coins as planned. Lucy wanted to buy a pretty dress for her mom first. Reb offered to give Lucy his half of the prize money. Seeing how insistent he was, Lucy didn't refuse. "But I'm always getting things from you. I want to do something for you too. So I won't take it for free. I'll grant you 3 wishes." The boy's face turned beet red. He clearly already had some ideas. Lucy went on a happy shopping spree. But when she turned around, she saw Reb was already struggling under the weight of all their purchases. They decided to take a break. Lucy's eyes were drawn to a sparkling diamond necklace in a nearby shop, but it was obviously far too expensive. Reb saw the whole thing. On the way back, they were still buzzing with excitement. For Reb, the entire day had been a new and fascinating experience. Lucy was just as happy grateful to Reb for helping her buy so many gifts. That's when Reb brought up the 3 wishes. "I want to use the first one now." He rummaged through his bag and pulled out a box. Inside was the very necklace Lucy had been admiring. "You didn't seem to buy anything for yourself. I thought it would look good on you. Will you accept it?" Lucy's heart started pounding. She couldn't believe Reb had been paying such close attention to her. The moment the necklace was around her neck, she couldn't help but blush. "You should think about your next wish. It feels like you're always the one helping me." "The next wish? How about you let me pat your head?" "No, that's something you can do anytime. It has to be more like a wish, you know?" They rode home in the carriage, laughing and talking the whole way. But that night, something strange happened. A man's voice came from outside, claiming to be from the knowledge competition and needing a winner's signature. Lucy instinctively moved to open the door. But then she remembered she never wrote down her address on the registration form. How did he find her? She made up an excuse and sent him away. Sure enough, the man outside was no staff member but the royal magician Radam. Quite clever. She should be an interesting opponent. A little while later, her mother finally came home, her fists clenched when she heard the story. Thankfully, nothing bad had happened. Let's open your presents. Reb and I picked them out just for you. Her mom loved the new dress, but then her eyes landed on the necklace around Lucy's neck. It looked very expensive. Could that boy have feelings for her? The next day, the general store her mom opened with a friend was a huge success, far beyond their expectations. Seeing her mom so full of life, and her good friend Domi finding his passion, Lucy realized she couldn't just drift along anymore. It was time to find her own goal. The girl confessed to her friend that she didn't have any dreams, but he just joked that with a good grasp of math and science, she could go anywhere. And so, her nightmare of studying math began. After a long, torturous hour, Lucy finally gave up. They switched from mental exercise to physical exercise, and Lucy's expression was completely different from when she was doing math. Maybe I should just become an expert at snowball fights? That's not a bad idea. I think as long as you're happy, it doesn't matter what you do. I think so too. If there's anything you want to do, you can tell me anytime. In that case, can I treat you to dinner tonight? That evening, Lucy found herself peeking through the door at Reb. He was wearing an apron and cooking personally. On the table was a book that read, "Happy Birthday." It was Lucy's birthday, a day even she had forgotten. On this special day, I wanted to fill it with things you love. Overjoyed, Lucy threw her arms around the boy. This is the first time anyone has ever put so much thought into celebrating my birthday. Thank you so much, Reb. They devoured all the food on the table. Lucy ended up falling asleep on the sofa. But the peaceful moment was shattered by the creak of the attic door. Reb had considered countless possibilities for who might come, but he never imagined it would be the Empress herself. The woman's words were superficially pleasant, but it was clear she was still worried about the line of succession. She had come to personally confirm that Reb had no rebellious intentions. After reminding him to take his medicine, she left. Reb was furious. Wasn't being imprisoned in this small village enough? Did they have to take turns monitoring him too? But right now, being with Lucy was all that mattered. Suddenly, a fierce look crossed his face. The next day, Lucy was pale. It turned out she had eaten too quickly the day before and felt sick. But there were no pharmacies in the village, only an old woman with folk remedies. Lucy couldn't believe how hard it was to get medicine. No wonder Reb had to take such a nasty, complicated potion. A bold idea popped into her head. If that was the case, she could learn to make medicine herself. Pharmacology was so underdeveloped here, there would be a huge demand, and she could help Reb at the same time. Just then, the Lord's assistant John found them. Lucy clutched her coin purse tightly. But he just smiled. He said, "The Lord would like to see you." The whole way there, they were anxious. Reb was especially anxious. He suspected his true identity had been discovered. His emotions started to spiral. He needed to take his medicine to calm down, but to his dismay, he didn't have it with him. Lucy noticed how pale he was and asked if he was okay. But Reb just said he was a little nervous. Soon they arrived at the Lord's mansion. The Lord was surprisingly friendly. He offered them desserts and hot tea before getting to the point. "Last summer, you two answered the final question of the competition correctly, didn't you?" Lucy thought they were in trouble. She tried to soothe Reb while taking the blame herself, claiming she had just happened to read it in a book. "I see. Well, I wanted to ask, are you two interested in studying?" They both nodded dumbly. "And you don't want to go to the capital when you come of age?" They both shook their heads in sync. The Lord was overjoyed. He grabbed Lucy's hand excitedly. "We've finally found our precious local talent for Rodante." The Lord had been searching for promising individuals, but every child he sponsored would learn a skill and then leave. Now, he had finally found two bright kids who didn't want to go to the capital. "What field would you like to study? Anything at all. I will find you the books and the teachers." Lucy didn't hide it any longer. She told him about her recent discovery and her desire to study pharmacology. As for Reb, he chose magic engineering and martial arts. The day's events were so overwhelming that they were both buzzing with energy. But on the way back, Reb suddenly acted strange, telling Lucy to go home by herself. Seeing his stumbling steps and flushed ears, it was obvious he wasn't feeling well. Lucy followed him back to his cottage and knocked 10 times, but there was no answer. Worried, she pushed the door open. She heard a muffled groan from the second floor. She rushed upstairs. She found Reb collapsed on the floor, unconscious. In his dream, the boy felt paralyzed. He couldn't see anything, just like the times he was punished long ago. All he could hear was a familiar footstep. Only Mother walks so carefully. "As long as I am here, my humble origins will be a burden to you. As a mother, how can I cause you trouble? It is time for me to go. You must be happy." No matter how much Reb pleaded, his mother left him forever, alone in the cold, terrifying palace. In the present, Reb was burning up with a high fever. As Lucy tried to leave to get help, he grabbed her hand, deliriously begging her not to go. "Don't worry, I won't leave you." Just then, Lucy spotted the medicine, the one Reb always carried with him. But due to the weather, it had become thick and viscous. It was clear the unconscious Reb couldn't drink it on his own. Without a second's hesitation, Lucy poured the medicine into her own mouth. She fed it to the boy. Within moments, his condition stabilized. But she collapsed right beside him. When Reb woke up, he tasted the bitterness in his mouth. He saw traces of the medicine on Lucy's lips. He immediately knew something was terribly wrong. Rodham had told him the medicine was specifically for his condition, but for anyone else it was a poison. Meanwhile, in the capital's royal palace, the emperor heard that Count Portino was increasing his military forces, even though intelligence suggested it was to counter Western powers. The paranoid emperor was displeased. He believed the count was secretly expanding his territory in preparation for a rebellion. There is nothing more ridiculous than a man who doesn't know his place. Is there, Diana? In your eyes, is there anyone who covets this position? Everyone present knew the emperor was talking about Aurelio, the illegitimate prince with humble origins. Rest assured, your majesty, he seems quite content where he is. Rodham agreed with this assessment, which temporarily eased the paranoid emperor's mind. But only the empress knew that the emperor wasn't the one truly in power. Anyone who dared to covet the throne would be utterly eliminated. To avoid that fate herself, she swore to protect her position and her son Delmar. Back in the village, Reb watched over the unconscious Lucy, consumed with guilt. He blamed himself for not telling her about the medicine's danger beforehand. If anything happened to Lucy, he would never forgive himself. Just then, the girl's eyes fluttered open. She sat up, looking as if she had just woken from a nap. Reb threw his arms around her, his body trembling. He silently swore to himself that he would never let Lucy be in danger again. Soon, their first lessons began. Lucy, having never had a formal education in pharmacology, was thrilled and had a million questions. But the moment she saw her teacher, she held her tongue. She was just too serious. So when the teacher told her to read the first chapter, she didn't dare mention she'd already finished it at home. After a quick review, she raised her hand. "I have a question about plant toxin molds. Could you explain the differences between each type?" Lucy tried to seize the opportunity, but all she got was, "You don't need to know that. They can all be treated with the same antidote." And so she moved on to the practical stage, feeling confused. Before long, she had successfully made an antidote under her teacher's guidance. Then she promptly wrapped up the lesson. She left without another word. Did she hate me? Just then, the Lord's assistant came in looking mysterious. "I have a question for you about Aurelio." The usually good-natured Reb suddenly flared up with anger. The assistant, feeling terrible, assumed it was because he hadn't been able to find Reb a teacher yet. But Lucy didn't think Reb was that petty. She figured there must be a misunderstanding and decided to ask him about it on the way home. However, on their way back, she ran into Domi, who was coming out of the blacksmith's shop. They chatted and laughed, sharing what they had been up to. Reb happened to see this. His heart filled with so much jealousy it was about to overflow. "By the way, Reb, you don't have a teacher yet. It must be tough studying alone. The assistant seemed very worried about you." Reb put on a thoughtful facade. He said not to worry, and that he was used to studying alone. He even feigned concern that he might be creating extra work for others. Lucy, hearing this fake answer, was relieved. It must have been a misunderstanding, just as she thought. Reb was just that kind. "Hey, should we invite Domi to hang out with us next time?" The boy's expression clearly soured, but he forced himself to act friendly. But when Lucy said Domi was a good friend, just as good as him, and that it would be more fun for the three of them to hang out, Reb couldn't pretend anymore. His face changed instantly. "In your heart, who is more special? If one of us were to disappear, would the one who's left become more special to you?" It was a strange question, but Reb quickly brushed it off as a joke. Lucy didn't dwell on it and answered directly. "Perhaps the one who disappeared would be more special. Time can't be turned back, and memories are always romanticized, so the one who's gone is missed more. But even so, I would never want anyone to disappear. Don't make jokes like that again." That was clearly not the answer Reb expected, but a twisted idea had already taken root in his mind. Not long after, as they were walking home under an umbrella, Domi suddenly appeared. He said Lucy's roof was leaking again, and, as usual, she would be staying at his house. Reb was instantly displeased. His hand clenched unconsciously with jealousy. He wanted to be Lucy's only friend, to have her all to himself, but right now, he had no right. Reluctantly, he let go of her hand and waved goodbye. Watching them walk away, a dark thought began to form. The only one who can be with you is me. How can I keep you by my side, belonging only to me? She finally won over her cold-hearted teacher with her sincerity. It had been a week since Lucy started her studies, but all she had learned were conclusions. Whenever she asked for more detailed reasons, her teacher would shut her down with, "You don't need to know." He even told her she didn't need to know that much just to run a business. Today, Lucy had had enough. She stated frankly that she wasn't learning pharmacology to make money, but because she genuinely wanted to learn how to heal people. Hearing this, the teacher calmly unbuttoned his sleeve, revealing a hideous scar. A long time ago, she had been hired to treat a noble lady's skin condition. Professional apothecaries had failed, but he cured her in just a month. For that, she was branded a warlock and accused of using evil magic. Even now, the status of apothecaries was just as low. The teacher assumed that after hearing her story, no one would choose to continue. But to her surprise, Lucy said her goal hadn't changed. She wanted to cure Reb's illness. She didn't believe pharmacology was dangerous. She wasn't willing to give up the ability to save people so easily. This reminded the teacher of her own ideals when she first started. The two cleared up their misunderstanding and had a pleasant lesson. That day, Lucy received a mountain of homework, unsure if she should be happy or sad. But she never imagined there was such strong prejudice against magic here. Magicians had been gone for so long. She then decided she was worrying about nothing. She thought she was now living in a time completely unrelated to the original novel. She could just live comfortably. She had no idea the opposite was true, and that she was already in Radham's sights. Soon after, a young postman arrived in the small village. He was shocked to find a letter from a count's estate in his bag. It was addressed to Lucy's mother. Guessing their identities weren't so simple, he curiously opened the letter, only to find it was empty. He tossed it aside with a scoff. But it was immediately picked up by Radham. He burned it on the spot without a second thought. Let her enjoy her peace for now. The truth will be revealed sooner or later. She received a special gift that allowed them to voice chat. They stayed connected even after she went home. In return, the boy received a carefully prepared surprise from her. It was a box he'd never seen before. It was filled with countless homemade potions and a note detailing their uses. Both the thought and the potions themselves were incredibly precious. This made Reb think of the medicine he was always drinking. Radham had said it was specially formulated for his condition, but he never said what that condition was. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his head. It happened every time he thought about the medicine. It was so bad he could barely stand. He had to take the potion immediately. The strange noises on the other end of the call worried Lucy, but not wanting to alarm her, Reb lied and said he had just tripped. Even the next day, Lucy couldn't focus on her studies. She kept wondering if Reb was hurt and decided she needed to make him more ointment. It was better to be overprepared. Just then, the sound of clashing swords came from outside. Lucy looked out from her balcony and saw Reb sparring with someone. Did he get a sword-fighting teacher? Worried he was pushing himself too hard, Lucy rushed downstairs. She learned the man wasn't a teacher, but one of the Lord's personal knights. The knight, Franz, had heard a boy wanted to learn swordsmanship and came to check him out. He was pleasantly surprised by what he found. Just as he was about to ask more, the assistant John appeared and interrupted their conversation. After they left, Franz shared his discovery. That boy has received royal swordsmanship training. He has to be from a ducal family at the very least, maybe even higher. On the way back, Reb also realized he had accidentally used techniques he learned in the palace during their match. He hoped he wouldn't run into the knight again. Spring arrived and Lucy had been living there for almost a year. Life was going well. The Empress learned that Radham had helped her son meet with Reb. Although nothing happened, she knew that if the Emperor found out, his wrath would fall upon her. The situation was dangerous. She decided it was time to give the cunning magician a stern warning. "Radham, come out! I have an order for you!" The man emerged from the darkness, radiating danger, but the Empress didn't flinch. "I heard you let Delmar meet with that boy," she said sternly. "You should know how dangerous that is. What if it angers His Majesty?" Seeing Radham apologize immediately, the Empress didn't press the issue. Instead, she asked, "I'm actually a bit curious. What prophecy did His Majesty hear that made him exile Aurelio?" He explained that prophecies were part of a pact with the contracted person and couldn't be disclosed. Furthermore, all prophecies came with a price. They could be established with a single sentence. The Empress was impatient, wanting to know about her son's future. But Radham said the price would only be known after the contract was fulfilled. She was unhappy with such one-sided terms. But for her son Delmar, she had no choice. "I will make a deal with you. Please tell me the prophecy about Delmar." As the contract was formed, a golden apple materialized in Radham's hand. One bite would reveal the future she sought. But the prophecy was baffling. Go and find the fiancé. Meanwhile, the city of Rodante was preparing to hold an academic and music festival. It was to celebrate the new year and recognize the research accomplished over the winter. Invitations had been sent all over the empire, and many distinguished guests were expected to attend. The excited lord invited Reb and Lucy, hoping they would present their findings. The pressure was immense for Lucy. Although the lord stressed it was voluntary, she felt indebted to him for all his help and wanted to contribute. Seeing how nervous she was, Reb, who normally disliked crowds, promised to be there with her. He just hoped that with such a big event, no trouble would arise. After all, he still couldn't leave this place. The Empress saw in the prophecy a factor that could influence her son's future. She used the excuse of a local illness spreading across the country and killing many children. She demanded an early search for a suitable partner for Delmar. However, the list of candidates made the Emperor suspicious. All the families were on the western border and were staunch supporters of the Emperor. But among them, he saw something interesting. At night, Radam performed his usual check of Reb's memories. Seeing nothing out of the ordinary, he was about to leave. But Reb stopped him and asked if anyone would recognize him at the academic festival in a few days. This fell into the realm of prophecy, and the price would not be small. But surprisingly, Radam offered to take his most important possession. Reb immediately thought of Lucy, but there was no way he would ever trade her for anything. Strangely, before they even made a deal, Radam gave him the answer, calling it an investment. In truth, he was brewing a massive conspiracy. The day before the event, Lucy was already overwhelmed with pressure. She dreamed of a long nap after the festival. By the way, you won't be presenting, but you'll be there, right? Why do you ask? It turned out Lucy was worried Reb would be bothered by the color of his eyes. You have to remember, that's all just superstition. Your eyes are the most beautiful in the world. The boy immediately grabbed her hand. I'll go to the festival. As long as I'm with you, I'm not afraid of anything. He acted dependent on her, but in his heart he was thinking, if anything gets in our way, I'll just get rid of it. Soon, the candidates for the Imperial Crown Princess were announced. When the news reached the original female lead, Eloise, she was not happy at all. She was clearly against the idea, especially given how cruel the current emperor was. Suddenly, her mother came up with a plan. She arranged for her daughter to attend a festival in a remote village. At the same time, Lucy's mother also received a letter from the Count's family. It turned out her husband had been the Count's son. After he was murdered, they were now targeting his daughter. Looking at Lucy's back, her mother made a silent vow to protect her only family. Elsewhere, the emperor received news of the academic festival. He immediately summoned his confidant. He ordered, "Go to the barony of Rodante at once. There is a red-eyed boy there. Kill him for me." The day of the conference arrived. Lucy's well-prepared presentation received a round of applause. But her nervousness lingered even after she left the stage. It was only when Reb praised her with a detailed and logical analysis that she finally relaxed. Next up was the music festival, but there was still a lot of time until evening. Reb invited Lucy to attend a guest lecture with him. It turned out to be on magic engineering. Since Reb didn't have a teacher, this was a precious opportunity. Seeing his enthusiasm, Lucy was happy for him. But she couldn't understand a word of it. And after her exhausting presentation, she felt like she had hit her limit. She let Reb know and went for a walk outside. That's when she heard a beautiful piano melody. She followed the sound to the main music hall. There, she ran into the Lord's assistant. He was busy preparing for the evening's concert. After a brief chat, he left. Just then, Lucy heard the Lord's voice. He seemed to be personally greeting someone. When she heard the guest was the Duchess de Messier, a jolt went through her. The Duchess de Messier was the first female duchess in the empire and also the female lead of the novel. Why would that family be here? Unaware of the truth, Lucy assumed they were just descendants of the family from a time after the novel's main story had ended. But she couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Just then, the magician Radam appeared and warned her. It's dangerous to be alone in a place like this. Lucy composed herself and prepared to head back. She told him to get somewhere safe too. But Radam said he was used to being alone and didn't like dealing with people. It was then that Lucy noticed the man's eyes were also red. Assuming he must have suffered a lot, she offered some kind words of comfort. But the man's expression suddenly changed. I came to watch. The pleasure of seeing humans being devoured, it never gets old. His crazed appearance terrified Lucy. She quickly tried to make an excuse to leave. But he grabbed her, saying he wanted to repay her for her kindness. Pay close attention later. You'll see something interesting if you watch the person who keeps glancing at the audience. A chilling feeling washed over Lucy. The next second, the man was gone. Soon the music festival began. The Lord's original piano composition was as flawless as rumored. However, after what had just happened, she couldn't shake her anxiety. That's when she noticed the two people next to her. The girl's name was Eloise, the same as the novel's heroine. She didn't think much of it, assuming it was a coincidence. But when she turned her head, her eyes met the cold gaze of the pianist on stage. Her heart skipped a beat. The man was carefully scanning the audience, just as the strange man had said. She quickly analyzed who the most likely target would be. It would be someone of high status, whom someone might want to assassinate, yet too weak to fight back. The answer had to be the heroine, Eloise. Sure enough, the next second, the man pulled out a dagger and rushed towards the audience. Without a second thought, Lucy instinctively pushed the girl out of the way. At that moment, Reb finished his lecture. He was excited, as it was his first time attending one. When he came to his senses, he realized the concert had already started. He heard a commotion nearby, with people murmuring, "How could something like this happen at the festival? Is that red-haired girl okay?" The words red-haired sent a jolt of panic through Reb. He pushed through the crowd, shouting Lucy's name. And so, this was the first meeting between the novel's original main characters. But right now, Reb only had eyes for the injured Lucy. He paid no attention to the person beside her. With a dark expression, he pushed her aside and said coldly, "Get lost." It wasn't until Lucy, dragging her heavy body, comforted him that he came to his senses. "I'm fine. That girl didn't do anything wrong. Don't be too hard on her." Reb choked back a sob, gripping her hand tightly, terrified that something would happen to her. Just then, the Duke returned and prepared to leave with Eloise. This enraged Reb. He demanded to know if he had anything to say before he left. The Duke stated she would make a formal visit later and turned to leave. Only because Lucy stopped him did Reb let them go. But he was filled with self-blame. Why was he never there in moments of crisis? Lucy fought through the pain and comforted him. "I would have been scared if I was here alone. But now that you're here, I feel safe. Can I just sleep for a little while now?" With that, she slowly closed her eyes. It was only then that Reb realized how deathly pale Lucy was. He also noticed the large pool of blood forming behind her. Lucy was quickly taken to a quiet room for treatment. The Lord apologized for the sudden assassination attempt and promised to find the culprit. But to everyone's surprise, the Duke wanted the matter dropped. As a candidate for Crown Princess, his daughter wasn't supposed to be out in public, so he chose to protect his own interests first. Besides, he was suspicious of Lucy in such a critical situation. How did this girl manage to save Eloise so quickly? After the Duke left, Reb knocked and came in. When he learned how the matter was being handled, he was furious. He knew exactly why the Duke refused an investigation, but he couldn't accept it. Lucy had nearly died. He had to find the real culprit. Just then, Lucy woke up. When she heard that the Duke had requested the investigation be stopped, he showed no reaction. She was simply happy that she had managed to save the other girl. Reb naturally respected her wishes, but he silently vowed that he would not let this happen a second time. "I need great power to protect you. I am willing to return to that position. I will become the embodiment of justice and correct all wrongs." She wanted to keep her loved ones from worrying. She agreed to rest at home. But strangely, from that day on, Reb disappeared. Was he angry with her for acting so recklessly? Just then, there was a knock at the door downstairs. Lucy thought it must be Reb. She ignored her injuries and rushed down. But when she opened the door, it was the Lord's assistant. After an awkward moment, the assistant presented a thank you gift from the Duke's family. "They heard you were injured and insisted on expressing their gratitude. If it's convenient, may I bring the gifts inside?" Lucy saw such lavish gifts for the first time. She didn't hesitate to refuse them. She said that anyone in her position would have done the same. "I just did what I was supposed to do." Her mother praised her choice. She asked the assistant to relay her daughter's feelings to the Duchess. Seeing he couldn't change their minds, the assistant had to respect their wishes. Lucy breathed a sigh of relief. It felt like the pile of gifts was meant to buy her silence forever. That night, the Duke told his wife about the incident. He praised Lucy as a rare, upright child. But the Duchess's wife muttered to herself, "What kind of person would ruin my plan?" She decided she had to meet this interesting child herself. The next day, Lucy was about to help out in the shop, but her mother told her to go play with Reb instead. Already missing him, Lucy left without a second thought. But the moment she was gone, an unexpected visitor appeared. It was her father's younger brother, a nobleman of high status. The man was a wolf in sheep's clothing, planning to get close to them with the intention of taking Lucy away. But there was no way Lucy's mother would allow that. "I'll have to see my niece's face next time," the man said before leaving. Terrified, she collapsed to the floor. She knew that family had their eyes on Lucy now. "I will not let them take my daughter." Meanwhile, Lucy had knocked on Reb's door more than a dozen times with no response. Was he really angry with her? She decided to go inside and talk to him face to face. But the first floor was empty. Reb didn't like her going to the second floor. She hesitated for a moment. Then she headed up, determined to clear the air. Before she could find him, however, she found his younger brother instead. He hadn't been sleeping well lately. He remembered how his older brother used to tell him stories until he fell asleep, so he had risked coming here alone. Lucy felt a little sorry for the boy. She took a vanilla candy from her pocket. It was meant to help with sleep. It's made with herbs that help soothe the body. Delmar was wary of taking medicine. However, when he saw the girl's bright smile, he decided to trust her. He ate it. Then he lay down on a nearby sofa. He quickly fell asleep. Lucy was still recovering. She felt a bit tired. She decided to rest while she waited for Reb. At the same time, in the basement, Reb had finished modifying a brooch. He mused that with tracking and recording functions, he could protect Lucy better. Just then, Radam appeared, startling him out of his obsessive thoughts. You said someone who knew me would be at the music festival. Were you talking about someone from the de Messier family? She was in disguise. But the answer was no. The person was one of the emperors. But she was in disguise simply because candidates for crown princess were not allowed to be out in public. It was then that Reb learned the empress was busy trying to find a wife for Delmar. The news shocked Reb, but he also saw an opportunity. He could use this to make a play for the position himself. However, he had forgotten that Radam was there to read his mind for the emperor as usual. Just in the nick of time, a crash was heard from outside. Adam voluntarily offered to end the probe. While this was good for Reb, he rushed out anxiously. He had just realized a week had passed since the concert, and he hadn't seen Lucy once. He needed to see her right away. But the first person he saw was Delmar. I told you not to come here again. Why did you ignore my warning? The naive Delmar explained how much he missed his brother, how empty the palace was without him, and asked why he had abandoned him. Is it because of that girl outside? If you can't leave her, we can have her come back with us. Reb knew the consequences if the royal family found out about this. After a couple of warnings, he was about to send the boy back when the Empress's voice echoed from the stairs, accusing Reb of kidnapping her child. Even though both of them explained who had initiated the visit, the outcome was the same. This infuriated Reb. He decided on a little revenge and revealed that the Empress was searching for a princess for Delmar. Delmar angrily confronted his mother, asking why she would make such a decision without consulting him. The Empress hid the truth about the prophecy. She simply said it was all for his own good. Reb scoffed. It was time to end this. I'm returning the prince to you, but please do not come here again. From now on, no member of the royal family is welcome here. In that moment, Reb guessed a huge secret. The emperor who hated him to the bone couldn't kill him for some reason, which was why he had been exiled here. After dealing with the unpleasantness, Reb gently woke Lucy and briefly explained who Delmar was. He then gave her the newly repaired brooch, promising he would never leave her side again. Lucy moved, hugged him tightly, happy he wasn't angry with her. But she didn't know that the brooch not only transmitted her location, but would also automatically start recording surrounding sounds whenever her heart rate increased. The boy smiled with a hint of obsession. I won't lose you again. Let's be together forever. They spent their days together as they always had. With one small difference, Reb had been baking delicious cookies lately. Lucy had even put on a little weight. But then, the Lord's assistant delivered an invitation from the Duke's family. It seemed they were truly determined to thank her properly and even asked for permission to visit at their convenience. Lucy thought her mother would object. Surprisingly, her mom suggested they meet, almost as if she couldn't wait for Lucy to leave. Strangely, though, her mom and aunt got into a fight over it. When Reb learned that Lucy had been invited by the Duke's family even after refusing their gifts, his expression darkened. In the eyes of the nobility, commoners were nothing. Moreover, the de Messier family was one of the few to survive the Emperor's Great Purge. They couldn't have done it with simple loyalty. For such a self-serving family to make such a strange move, there had to be a conspiracy. Just then, Lucy invited him to go to the Duke's estate with her. Reb agreed without a second thought. After Lucy left, an unexpected visitor appeared. Lucy's mother. Her usual friendly demeanor was gone. I know you're not from around here. I worked in a noble household for a long time, I can tell. Why are you revealing this now? You're familiar with the name Lawrence, aren't you? He died in this village. And Lucy is his child. Once, she was just a handmaiden to Lawrence. Over time, they fell in love. After Lucy was born, they left that predatory family behind. But soon after they arrived here, Lawrence passed away. She knew her husband had died because of his family's ambition. Now they were targeting Lucy. My strength alone is not enough. So I'm asking you, please, use your family's power. Any means necessary. Reb was willing to protect Lucy, of course, but his identity was a sham. He had no power to speak of. After being refused, she muttered blankly, "It seems that's the only way." Before she left, she turned and smiled. Please continue to stay by Lucy's side, okay? Her expression gave Reb a bad feeling, as if she were saying a final goodbye. The day of the visit to the ducal estate arrived. A maid led Lucy to a room. There she was dressed in a stunningly gorgeous gown. It was unlike anything she had ever worn before. As she was getting used to it, Reb appeared. His own transformation was complete. One look at him made Lucy's heart race. They saw each other every day, but he seemed different today, like a prince from a fairy tale. At dinner, the Duke welcomed her warmly. Eloise expressed her sincere gratitude. She wondered aloud if she had met Reb before. But Reb flatly denied it. Lucy found it strange. The person who was usually so friendly was suddenly on high alert. After some mediation, dinner finally began. Lucy couldn't help but ask the question that had been bugging her. How did the attacker pinpoint the disguised Duchess? Just then the Duke appeared. She praised Lucy's sharp intuition. She also posed a difficult question. I'm curious, Miss Lucy. How did you manage to save my daughter? Did you perhaps know she was going to be attacked? The implication was clear. She was suggesting Lucy was in league with the attacker. But the Duchess persisted, saying it was a possibility, and that they would have to stay for an investigation. This infuriated Reb, who shot to his feet to defend her. It's enough. I never expected to be treated like this as guests of a ducal house. Just as the Duchess was about to say more, everyone gasped. A large red rash had appeared on Lucy's arm. Enraged, Reb ignored the Duchess completely, grabbed Lucy, and stormed out. Back in their room, Reb's anger hadn't subsided. It was bad enough to make such a baseless accusation, but to also cause her harm. Lucy realized Reb had misunderstood and quickly explained that she had caused the allergic reaction on purpose. Before dinner, she had secretly applied an oak moss extract. It was just in case a situation like this arose. Reb was relieved but still heartbroken. Seeing Lucy hurt was incredibly painful for him. So, even if it was the easiest and most effective solution, he didn't want her to do it. I still have 2 wishes left, right? For the second one, I wish that you'll never hurt yourself again. Lucy was deeply moved. She hadn't realized she had made Reb so upset. She promised to discuss things with him beforehand from now on so he wouldn't have to worry. Elsewhere, the Duke and Duchess were arguing. The man wanted his wife to focus on finding the real culprit instead of suspecting the person who had saved their daughter. But the Duchess revealed that she already knew who the culprit was. She was the one who had sent the assassin. She had used the assassination attempt to prevent her daughter from taking that position, to keep her from bringing good fortune to the royal family. The man understood but was afraid of the psychological damage it would cause their daughter. But the Duchess said, "Don't misunderstand. Wanting our daughter excluded from the list of candidates was just to satisfy my own wishes." However, Eloise overheard everything from outside the door, unable to understand why her mother would want to kill her. She found herself wandering to Lucy's room. There, she apologized for her mother's rude behavior at dinner. Not knowing the truth, Lucy said it was understandable, given that her only daughter had nearly been seriously injured. This made Eloise feel even more ashamed. She changed the subject, asking about Lucy's allergic reaction. When she learned Lucy had made the anti-allergy medicine herself and was studying pharmacology for Reb, she couldn't help but ask about the boy's background. Although Reb had introduced himself as a commoner, his entire demeanor screamed nobility. Don't trust people who aren't honest with you. Lucy had noticed it too from Reb's reactions, but she believed he must have his reasons, and that he would tell her when he was ready. Reb had done so much for her, she chose to trust him. Eloise's mood suddenly dropped. How can you be so sure? What do you do when someone you trusted does something you can't understand? Lucy sensed she was talking about herself. First, you have to listen to their reasons. Even if you can't accept it in the end, there's no need for regret. The most important thing is to believe in yourself, because you will never betray yourself. Lucy's words helped Eloise finally find some peace. She promised that if Lucy ever needed anything, she could ask her for help. The Duchess invited Lucy for morning tea while Reb was out hunting. She first apologized for her overly sensitive behavior the day before. Then, she started talking about the recent happenings in the royal family. Although she didn't know the specifics, she was sure something big was going on. This made Lucy uneasy. She was realizing this novel's world wasn't set after the main plot had ended, but rather before it had even begun. Yet everyone insisted that important magician characters didn't exist. It was all so strange. Their awkward conversation soon ended. As the Duchess was leaving, she turned and asked if Lucy had always lived in the village of Rodante. After getting an affirmative answer, she muttered to herself, "It must be my imagination, such a strangely familiar face." As evening approached, they began their journey home. In the carriage, Lucy kept thinking about the Duchess's final words. Did her face remind her of someone from her father's side? It seemed she would have to ask her mother when she got home. But as they arrived, she noticed the village was eerily quiet. She looked up and saw that her house was on fire. The villagers told her that her mother had been feeling unwell and had stayed home today. Her mind went blank. She tried to rush into the inferno, ignoring Reb's desperate attempts to stop her. Just then, the house gave way and collapsed. Reb pulled her to safety at the last second. However, Lucy was completely broken. She knew Chelsea wasn't her real mother, but she was the reason she had been able to put down roots in this strange world. Her selfless warmth was real. Powerless, Lucy could only watch as her home burned to the ground. Time passed. For 3 days, Lucy didn't eat or drink a thing. She said she was fine. However, she would cry silently whenever she was alone. Reb knew exactly why Chelsea had done it. If she disappeared, that predatory family would never be able to find Lucy. But for Lucy, this method had caused a fatal wound. A twisted thought suddenly emerged. If a mother's existence was so cruel, it would be better not to have had one at all. He went to Radham and made a deal to completely erase Lucy's mother from existence. As they sealed the contract, Radham began to cast his spell. Lucy was lifted into the air by a bright light, her red hair slowly turning to gold. And in return, something very important was taken from Reb, the necessary price for fulfilling a contract. The next day, Lucy finally woke up, feeling as if she had just emerged from a very long dream. Reb came in with breakfast, a smile on his face, but his expression was strangely off. Through their brief conversation, it became clear that Lucy's memory stopped on the day they returned from the ducal estate. The house, she now believed, had been so dilapidated that it was washed away by a storm, and she had been staying with him for several months. She promised to look for a place to live and move out as soon as possible. But Reb told her the room was unused anyway, and she could stay as long as she liked. Lucy was touched by Reb's kindness. After he left, a strange smile appeared on Reb's face. A successful transaction, he muttered to himself. Several months passed. Lucy noticed that her memories from after the visit to the ducal estate were becoming fuzzy. On top of that, Reb was now leaving early and coming back late, refusing to say what he was busy with. Not long ago, he had even gotten into a violent fight with Vincent. It was a complete change from his usual gentle self. It was the first time she had ever seen him so fierce. Suddenly, an image of the fire flashed through her mind. Her head began to ache uncontrollably. Thankfully, Reb appeared just in time to catch her before she fell. That night was a farewell party for their friend, Dietrich's brother. Everyone was happy, but Lucy could tell something was weighing on Reb's mind. They went outside to a bench to get some fresh air, and Lucy apologized to him. "You've seemed a little different lately, like you're not the person I used to know. I feel like I'm missing something." Reb suddenly rested his forehead against hers and took her hand, comforting her. "Don't feel anxious. I've been coming home late because I have to go to a library that's very far away, and I only taught Vincent a lesson because he insulted you." He then placed a kiss on her forehead. "I told you I would always be with you. If you ever feel insecure, just look at that necklace. The crocus flower means the joy of trust. My heart for you will never change." Lucy's heart finally settled. She believed their days would continue on as they always had. But one day Reb suddenly vanished. He quietly became the first prince of the empire. Back at the palace, Reb negotiated with the empress. In exchange for breaking off an engagement, he successfully borrowed a number of private soldiers. His immense power made the royal family wary, even leading them to use treacherous tactics, like sending him to attack the impenetrable Patel Duchy with a tiny force. But to everyone's shock, Reb not only won but did so in less than half a month. Upon his return, he claimed a shoulder injury and requested to recuperate in a separate palace. By regulation, that palace was reserved for the future crown princess, so the ministers were all against it. The second prince has already broken his engagement, and the crown princess's arrival is nowhere in sight. After all these years of fighting, can I not even be granted a place to rest? As soon as he came out, he met the magician Radham. After learning the emperor's condition hadn't improved, he rushed back to his office to watch Lucy's every move, eagerly awaiting their reunion. Just now, Lucy heard a knock downstairs. Ruling out everyone else who might visit, she excitedly thought it must be Reb. But when she opened the door, it was the original heroine, Eloise. "Are you okay? I actually came today to ask you a favor. Would you be willing to come to the capital with me?" It turned out the royal family was about to hold an auction. It was actually a test. One couldn't bid too ridiculously high, but one also had to win the item at a price that wouldn't offend the emperor. In short, it required a perfect sense of balance. Ever since the day Lucy saved her, Eloise had considered her a very perceptive person, which was why she extended the invitation. But Lucy, not wanting to get involved with the original novel, had always avoided the capital, so she naturally made an excuse to decline. But when Eloise said, "You might be able to see Reb in the capital," Lucy was on the next carriage. On the way, however, she learned something new. The palace was in turmoil. A man claiming to be the first prince had appeared, achieving numerous military victories and now eyeing the throne. As a result, the palace was divided into two factions, one for the first prince and one for the second prince. This instantly reminded Lucy of the original novel. The male lead, born as an illegitimate child and abandoned by his mother, grew up alone in a cold palace and eventually entered into a political marriage with the heroine. But the heroine happened to look just like his mother, causing him to both love and hate her, leading to a tumultuous romance. And now the heroine, Eloise, was right beside her. This is bad. Meanwhile, the male lead, Reb, received news of her arrival in the capital. He put on his glasses, transforming back into his familiar old self, ready to welcome her after their long separation. Later, Eloise went to the bank, and Lucy wandered around alone, processing the new information and resolving to stick close to Eloise to prevent the original plot from unfolding. Just then, the male lead, Reb, suddenly appeared. The person she had thought about day and night for 5 years was standing right in front of her. It felt like a dream. I can't believe I'm seeing you here. I should be the one saying that. When did you get here? Do you have any idea how worried I've been? Lucy poured out 5 years of pent-up feelings. Her anxious expression brought Reb immense joy. I'm sorry I left without saying anything, but I really, really missed you all this time. Lucy's heart instantly softened. So what are you doing here? The person I was looking after suddenly fell ill, so I came to help out. Lucy could tell Reb wasn't being completely honest. She had never pressed him for answers before, just figuring he would tell her when the time was right. But the thought of being separated again because of this made her feel a little sad, afraid he might suddenly disappear again one day. Sensing her sadness, Reb quietly pulled her into a hug. He promised that from this day forward, they would always be together. Lucy, for her part, looked forward to the day they could be completely honest with each other, the day he would tell her everything himself. They went to a nearby park, and the beautiful scenery reminded Lucy of home. She told him about how everyone in the village was doing, and that she was now working as an apothecary. She had originally studied pharmacology, but she switched to become an apothecary because she wanted to help Reb. You used to take that medicine all the time when you were little, right? If I could make it, I think I could help you. Can you tell me more about your symptoms? Reb remembered that the green potion was from Radam. It was only later that he realized the symptoms were those of poisoning. It was likely a method the royal family used to control him. First, there's coughing and fever. I get tired easily, and sometimes I have headaches. Finally, he placed her hand on his chest and added, and sometimes my heart beats very, very fast. It took a moment for Lucy to realize what was happening, and she shyly pulled her hand away, saying she would make the corresponding medicine. In truth, Reb no longer needed that stuff, but seeing Lucy worry about him made him so happy that he didn't correct her. Next, they talked about the upcoming royal auction. When she learned that Reb would also be attending, Lucy had a feeling her friend was not as simple as he seemed. So, will we be able to see each other again? Reb replied without a hint of hesitation, and placed a solemn kiss on her hand. Of course. This time I'll be the one waiting for you. Lucy was so embarrassed she could have died. This boy was far too bold, he wasn't the Reb she knew. Soon, the day of the auction arrived. In a moment of distraction, Lucy lost sight of Eloise. She was wandering around like a headless chicken. The next second, she bumped right into a blonde boy. He grabbed her hand and started hitting on her. Have we met somewhere before? After she told him it was her first time in the capital, the boy had a sudden realization. You're that girl from back then. Weren't you at my brother's house? At this, Lucy finally remembered seeing him at Reb's house when they were kids. You remember me, don't you? You gave me a piece of candy back then, and it was the first time I ever slept so soundly. She couldn't believe how tall he had gotten. His handsome features and fine clothes suggested he was of high status. I thought I had the wrong person. Your hair used to be red. Did you change it like this for my brother? Hearing this, a sharp pain shot through Lucy's head. An image of a fire suddenly flashed in her mind, along with a sad-looking Reb talking to someone she couldn't hear. The next second, her hair turned back to red. As she panicked, Reb appeared from behind and wrapped her in a hug. His gentle voice instantly calmed her. But when he looked at Delmar, his expression changed completely. You saw nothing here today. Do you understand? Delmar had clearly seen magic at work and was curious about what his brother had done. But before he could ask, a chilling glare from Reb sent him scurrying away. Reb, you knew my hair color had changed, didn't you? What on earth happened during that time? Reb knew he couldn't get away without saying something, but he still chose to hide the truth, only telling her that her real home, filled with her precious herbs, favorite clothes, and everything she cherished, had burned down in a fire of unknown origin. The shock, he claimed, had caused her to lose her memory and even turned her hair white. Lucy knew the explanation was flimsy. Her memories of the fire didn't feel like an accident, and it was strange that the shock would be enough to cause amnesia. But seeing the pained look on Reb's face, she couldn't bring herself to press him further. I believe you. Whatever you say, I'll believe you. Reb hugged her with all his might, as if trying to merge her into his very being. I'm sorry for hiding this from you for so long. I'm happy your hair is back to its original color. At that moment, a murderous rage towards Radam ignited within Reb. To think he had messed things up this badly. He really couldn't trust that palace lapdog. Just then, Lucy mentioned Delmar. She noted his fancy clothes and high status. Come to think of it, I don't really know anything about you. For years, Lucy had been waiting for the day Reb would tell her everything himself. She had been a little afraid, thinking that if she tried to find out, he might just disappear. But as they grew closer, her curiosity began to outweigh their old unspoken agreement. And now, she desperately needed to know the answer. So who are you really? And what have you been doing all this time I was gone? Just as Reb, no longer wanting to hide anything, was about to confess, the auction hall suddenly burst into flames. Remnants of a defeated nation had started a rebellion, and the scene instantly descended into chaos. Reb immediately grabbed her and led her to a safe place. Lucy wondered how rebels could have gotten in here. Reb guessed they had come to retrieve their king's head. A short while ago, Patel and the Empire were merely in a standoff. But when they heard the emperor was ill, they began attacking the border. In response, the imperial army took the enemy king's head as a warning. Without their leader, Patel's forces crumbled. They thought the matter was over, but it seemed some factions couldn't accept the outcome. Lucy knew that the commander of the imperial army Reb was talking about was the male lead of the novel. That meant this place was extremely dangerous. So when Reb told her to go to the shelter by herself, she refused. She had a strong feeling that if they separated now, the Reb she knew would disappear forever. Let's go together. What if something happens to you on your own? Just then, 3 rebels appeared. Despite their brandished weapons and arrogant demeanor, Reb was completely unfazed. He advised them to back down. One of them recognized him, his face contorting in fear. Worried Lucy would find out, Reb prepared to strike first, but it was too late. The man had already revealed his identity as the Imperial commander. You asked me how I've been living these past few years. First Prince of the Empire, Aurelio. That's my name here. It was only then that Lucy realized Reb was the very male lead from the novel she had been trying so hard to avoid. Looking back, all the pieces fit. The reason he lived alone in such a big house as a child. The way he was so guarded and unwilling to talk about his past. It was all because those things were too painful to speak of. Although he looked like a stranger just now, the Reb she knew wasn't a tyrant. He was kind, gentle, and thoughtful. But after seeing Eloise, Lucy couldn't help but let her mind wander. Once Reb suppressed the rebellion and returned, he would meet the heroine and the original plot would officially begin. The heroine would be in peril. She would be saved by the hero she coincidentally met. Their eyes would lock. They would fall in love as fate intended. The thought made her unbearably sad. Just then, the 2 princes returned from quelling the rebellion. The surrounding nobles murmured amongst themselves, full of praise for Reb. As the first prince, Reb spent his days on the battlefield and was incredibly experienced. Lucy realized the man in front of her was no longer her childhood friend. At that moment, Reb started walking towards her. Lucy steeled herself to witness the beginning of the main couple's love story. But Reb, without a moment's hesitation, walked right past Eloise and took her hand in front of everyone. In front of everyone, she was led away by her childhood friend, the first prince, and taken to the separate palace reserved for the crown princess. There, she was attended to by maids, dressed in a magnificent gown, and had her makeup exquisitely done. Then Reb led her into the palace gardens. I'm sorry. I always wanted to tell you the truth, but I was scared. I had gotten used to being abandoned, to being alone. But after I met you, I wanted to protect this ordinary life. Lucy couldn't help but wonder if Reb's fate had changed the moment she transmigrated into this world. If so, did that mean his future as a tyrant could be changed too? Don't you worry. It doesn't matter who you are. My heart will always be the same. Reb let out a huge sigh of relief at her forgiveness, silently vowing that he would not let the incompetent Radam get away with this. Meanwhile, the Empress was asking Radam about Reb's whereabouts. Learning he was with Lucy in the separate palace, she realized the situation was becoming tricky. According to imperial law, one had to be married to inherit the throne. Delmar currently had no fiancé, and any misstep could threaten her son's position. What's more, Reb had played the role of a savior during the attack on the imperial auction. If this continued, his influence would only grow stronger. However, with a hint from Radam, she came up with a plan. All she had to do was make the public distrust Reb as well. The reason he was sent to the countryside in the first place was because of his red eyes. The urgent task now was to find a way to expose this flaw. Just as Radam finished his conversation, he was confronted by Reb. Reb had found out that the spell on Lucy had been broken. Not only had her hair turned red again, but she was also vaguely remembering the house fire. However, a magician cannot lie. The spell has not been broken. I'm not sure why this is happening. Do you remember the price you paid me? If the contract is broken, you won't survive either. After a warning, Reb was about to leave, but Radam stopped him. You should probably stay close to Miss Lucy for the time being. I hear Her Majesty the Empress is very interested in her. It would be a shame if something happened after you've just been reunited. At that moment, Lucy was browsing the library in the separate palace, looking for useful books, but she wasn't having much luck. Just then, Delmar arrived. After some conversation, Lucy learned that the separate palace was where the crown princess was supposed to live. She couldn't understand why Reb would put her here. Unable to find his brother, Delmar was about to leave. Suddenly, Lucy remembered the question she had been searching for an answer to. Maybe he would know something that wasn't in the books. Have you heard of any magicians still living in the world today? The moment he heard the question, Delmar seemed to transform into a different person. He cornered her against a wall and demanded, "Where did you hear that? Have you seen him?" But just then Reb appeared. He immediately pushed the boy away, demanding to know why he was there. Delmar explained that the Empress had summoned him. After calming Lucy down, Reb left with Delmar. Lucy was disappointed she couldn't get any information, but from his reaction, he definitely knew something. She would have to find another chance to ask. At the subsequent meeting, the Empress announced that to repair the damage from the auction incident and promote harmony among the nobility, they would host a hunting tournament. It would be led by both the first and second princes to demonstrate the empire's enduring power and authority. Not only Reb but all the nobles present were shocked. The Empress's reason was that the first prince had contributed significantly during the rebel attack, thereby earning him the right to participate as a member of the royal family. Reb couldn't figure out her motive. His swordsmanship was far superior to Delmar's. At this rate, more of Delmar's supporters would defect to his side. However, just as the meeting was about to end, the Empress also invited everyone staying at the palace. It was then that Reb realized her target was Lucy. Meanwhile, Lucy was still searching for records of magicians, but it was as if they had been deliberately erased. As she was wrestling with the problem, Radam appeared at her door. "What are you doing here? Why did you come? Did something terrible happen again?" Radam instantly closed the distance between them. He toyed with a lock of Lucy's hair as he issued a warning. "You should be careful. A lot of people in this palace are watching you. Well then, until we meet again." Radam had come to investigate why Lucy's hair color and memories were returning. But strangely, he couldn't sense any trace of magic on her. So how was the spell breaking? The day of the hunting tournament arrived. Not wanting to make things difficult for Reb, Lucy changed into a practical riding outfit and joined the event. To help Reb perform at his best and win the support of other nobles, Lucy told him not to worry about her and to give it his all. "We may not have many people on our side, but you're the best, and I'm rooting only for you." Buoyed by her encouragement, Reb was filled with confidence. He instinctively tightened his grip on the reins, making Lucy blush. And with that, they separated. Strangely, Radam then walked into Reb's tent. To ensure the Empress wouldn't harm Lucy while he was away, Reb ordered Radam to stay by Lucy's side all day. Radam agreed. He then cast a spell on Reb. He offered no explanation other than that it was a magician's blessing. He said he hoped Reb would achieve satisfactory results on the hunt. As he left, a wicked smile crossed his face. At the same time, Delmar was receiving instructions from his mother. He had always been fond of his older brother and believed him to be a capable man, the only one the royal family needed. But his mother suddenly flew into a rage. "If this continues, he will kill you. Only if you inherit the throne can we survive." Seeing Delmar's stunned expression, she continued to persuade him. "It's not that difficult. You just have to quietly hold on to your position. Today will be the last day Aurelio gets to be arrogant." And so the hunting tournament began, a stage for the two brothers' deadly confrontation. He had always liked his brother, but he knew his brother didn't see him as family. So, at his mother's urging, he decided to make a fatal move. As the hunting tournament began, Lucy was immediately summoned by the Empress. She didn't understand the intention, but decided to play it by ear. To her surprise, the Empress told her to leave the palace immediately, to go somewhere as far away as possible where Reb couldn't find her. If she obeyed, all her wishes would be granted. It was clear she was seen as a thorn in the Empress's side. With two princes in the empire, there wasn't room for both, and Reb was a powerful threat. "Reb is a friend I've known for years. At first, I just felt sorry for him because he was being ostracized, so I helped him. A child who was exiled because of a power struggle? And now you want me to make him all alone again? I can't do it. I could never betray him." With that, Lucy left. The Empress, having been refused, was not the least bit displeased. She had expected this outcome. "So persuasion won't work? Then we'll do it by force. Radam now." Reb and Delmar were on the hunting grounds. The other participants were deliberately driving the game towards Delmar, creating a contrived atmosphere of praise. Reb found the childish display laughable, but something was off. The charade was dragging on for too long, as if they were intentionally stalling. He was about to leave when the high priest invited him to go deeper into the forest. "Are you trying to hunt every beast in this forest? It's getting late, we should head back." "No!" Delmar shouted. After a reminder from a nearby soldier, he corrected himself. "Fine, do as you wish, if you can escape from here, that is." Reb suddenly realized something was terribly wrong. "Lucy is in danger!" He tried to intimidate Delmar with a threat, but the boy didn't back down. The next second, hidden soldiers launched a surprise attack, and Reb was severely wounded. Thanks to his years of experience on the battlefield, he barely managed to escape. But Delmar's men were in hot pursuit, and in his injured state he was knocked from his horse. "I'm sorry, brother. Perhaps this is our unavoidable fate." Reb thought of his unfortunate childhood, wondering if he was destined to have nothing. It was the thought of Lucy, the one person who had always stood by him without question, that ignited his will to survive. "I will not let anyone take her from me." At that moment, Lucy was walking back alone, thinking about Reb's situation and wishing she could help him. When she came to her senses, she realized she had been walking in circles. The next second, several cloaked men appeared behind her, their blades glinting in the light. Lucy broke into a run but tripped on a stone. Just as her life was about to end, Reb appeared. In a flash, he killed them all, a terrifying smile on his blood-splattered face. "Don't worry, I'm here. From now on, a new era begins for the Empire." Lucy, who had witnessed everything, could hardly believe the person who had done this was Reb. "Wait here. I'll be right back," he said, before walking into the Empress's tent. "I never thought you would go behind my back and do something like this, but I must say your son's swordsmanship is abysmal." The next moment, a heavily injured Delmar was carried into the tent. The Empress broke down at the sight, accusing Reb of crossing a line. This enraged him. "You were the one who crossed the line first. Why did you drag Lucy into this? You will all pay the price for this." Feeling threatened, the Empress lashed out, screaming that Reb should have stayed dead, that his lowly birth meant he never should have returned to the palace. "Your very existence, just as the prophecy foretold, will bring misfortune to the Empire, and that woman will betray you sooner or later." Reb, enraged, was about to raise his sword to kill her when Lucy arrived just in time, stopping things from getting worse. Reb saw her trembling with fear. Not wanting to show her his brutal side, he ordered the Empress to be taken away and placed under strict guard. "For breaking the royal taboo and attempting to kill a prince, I will hold you fully accountable." As she was being dragged away, the Empress let out a final, chilling scream. "The curse of the red eyes will plunge the Empire into chaos. You will not have a moment of peace for the rest of your life." From that day on, it was as if the Empress and Delmar had vanished from the face of the earth. Reb took over the affairs of state, but as an illegitimate son, he had few followers. Every day was a struggle, and as a result, he and Lucy hadn't had a proper conversation in a month. So when Reb suddenly appeared, looking at her with the same gentle eyes as always, Lucy was so moved her eyes welled up with tears. They hugged, giving each other warmth and sharing the longing they had felt for so long. Lucy had many questions, but seeing Reb safe and sound was all that mattered. Later, Reb told her what had been happening. The Emperor was bedridden due to his illness, but they had discussed the current situation. For the stability of the Empire, Reb had decided to hold a succession ceremony. This should have been a good thing for Reb, but Lucy couldn't shake a feeling of unease, as if something was missing. After he left, Reb was approached by Radam, who instructed him on how to secure his power and successfully complete the succession. This made Reb suspicious. Radam had been unusually proactive lately, not only arranging for the Empress and Delmar to be discreetly taken care of, but also convincing the Emperor to proceed with the ceremony. Everything was going too smoothly. But when he asked for a reason, Radam just deflected with a self-deprecating joke. "I don't care what your motives are. If you want to keep your head, then stop disobeying my orders." Radam smiled to himself. "I'll play along a little longer," he thought. "You're still useful for now." The day of the succession ceremony arrived. Lucy met a red-haired man who greeted her warmly the moment he saw her. "Why, if it isn't Miss Lucy." "My name is Friedrich Meinelick." Lucy was confused as to how he knew her name. He simply asked in return, "Did your mother, Miss Chelsea, not tell you anything?" In that instant, the sealed memories of her mother began to crack. The girl's memories returned, and the childhood friends had a falling out. A strange woman appeared in Lucy's mind, yet she felt a sense of familiarity, as if she had known her from the very beginning. "But she was an orphan, wasn't she?" The red-haired man chuckled. "Did she tell you to say that? I suppose it makes sense for a woman who would give up her own life to destroy evidence." A wave of nausea washed over Lucy as the memories of her mother flooded back in an instant. She couldn't understand why she had forgotten everything. "While I can understand why you were hiding from me, please try to understand my joy at meeting my only niece. After all, you have inherited the blood of the Count Meinelick family." For the first time, Lucy heard the story of her maid mother and noble father. She also understood why her mother had tried so desperately to hide the truth. The Meinelick family would do anything for power, and she, at a marriageable age, would be their best bargaining chip. Her intuition screamed that the man before her was dangerous. She denied her identity and fled in a panic, unaware that the wheels of fate were already turning. Distraught, Lucy found Reb and demanded to know why he was always hiding things from her. "You said my hair color changed just because my real home burned down." You knew my memories were incomplete, yet you acted as if nothing was wrong. That means you were the one who did it, right? Why did you erase my memories? The sudden accusation left Reb stunned. As the seconds ticked by in silence, Lucy's disappointment grew. If only he would explain, she would have believed him. But his continued silence offered no comfort. Perhaps the only explanation was a lack of trust. If that's the case, then I'm done waiting. Her words jolted Reb. He grabbed her hand, his grip unconsciously tightening. The expression on his face became so unnatural that it frightened Lucy. They parted on bad terms. Watching her leave, Reb didn't know what he had just done. All he had to do was tell her the reason he made the contract with Radam, but for some reason, the words wouldn't come out. After a sharp stabbing pain, he whispered as if his soul had left him. It'll be fine once I become emperor, then I can keep Lucy by my side forever. Hidden in the shadows, Radam saw everything and smiled, his plan succeeding. After leaving, Lucy also realized something was wrong. Reb's actions were completely out of character. He had been acting strangely lately, sometimes seeming like a different person, something even he seemed confused by. She couldn't let this continue. As she was thinking about how to help him, the necklace in her hand suddenly fell, clattering down the stairs. When she found it, she accidentally triggered a magic circle. The next second, a door appeared out of thin air. She bravely stepped through, only to be grabbed by a withered old man. A hoarse voice rasped, "Please stop the curse that shrouds the Empire. If this continues, we will all face ruin." Before she could figure out what was happening, Radam appeared behind her. "This is not a place for just anyone. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the attending physician for His Majesty the Emperor, who is lying over there." It was only then that Lucy realized the withered man before her was the Emperor of the Empire. No infectious disease could possibly reduce a person to such a state. What is going on? You've heard of the red eye curse, haven't you? The implication was clear. This was all Reb's fault. Lucy, of course, didn't believe it. He couldn't use magic. But Radam continued to brainwash her. "Didn't Her Majesty the Empress also advise you to leave? If you stay, you will be in danger too." Lucy began to waver. Was Reb hiding things from her because he had altered her memories? Seeing this, Radam smiled. Everything was under his control. On the day of the succession ceremony, Lucy sought out Reb again. She told him everything about seeing the Emperor, begging him to cancel the ceremony. "I know you made a contract with a magician to erase my memories so I wouldn't be sad. He took something precious from you in return. Don't let this continue. His Majesty the Emperor is having his life force drained because of it." Confronted with the truth, Reb's head throbbed with pain. After a flash of magic, his eyes became cold and unfamiliar. He once again refused Lucy's request. "No matter what, I will become the emperor of this empire. I am doing all of this for you. The history of the empire will be rewritten tonight." Unable to persuade him, Lucy was dejected. The reason she was trying so hard was because the emperor had told her that Reb, having made a contract with a magician, would have his soul stolen the moment he ascended the throne. But it was clear that he was now under the contract's influence and would never give up. With the ceremony about to begin, Lucy frantically searched through every book she could find but couldn't find any information about contracts or curses. How could she save Reb? Suddenly she thought of someone. Information on such a forbidden topic could only be known by someone of impossibly high status, the Empress. The Empire is in danger. "Please tell me how to break a contract with a magician." From the Empress, she learned the truth about Radam. A long time ago, the previous emperor had eliminated all magicians except for the most capable one, Radam. He placed a restraining device on him and used him for his own purposes. It was because of this that the empire had remained prosperous. Lucy could almost understand Radam's feelings. For over 100 years, he had been treated as a slave to fulfill the royal family's desires. It was only natural that he would want revenge. But then, the Empress delivered the worst possible news. In 100 years, no one had ever escaped the price of a contract. A contract that has been made cannot be broken. Lucy knew what she had to do. On the day of the succession ceremony, Reb had already lost consciousness. Under Radam's brainwashing, he took a short dagger and prepared to present it to the current emperor in front of everyone. He will then show you how to use it. He was so close to having the empire that had almost taken everything from him firmly in his grasp. Reb tried to think about what that meant, but every time he did, a sharp pain shot through his head, so he simply stopped thinking. Radam saw this and smiled. His plan was proceeding perfectly. That evening, Lucy, dressed in a magnificent gown, made an excuse and slipped out of her room to find Reb. A few hours earlier, she had learned something from Delmar. The room where Radam was keeping the sick emperor could only be entered by a magician. This meant that Lucy might be able to use magic, and that magicians feared each other. Right now, the only person who could save the empire and Reb was Lucy. But as she left her room, she ran right into Radam. She tried to pretend she didn't know him and slip past, but he saw right through her. It seems what Her Majesty the Empress said had quite an impact on you. I'm sorry, but you can't go any further. Just stay here and watch. At the same time, Reb had already handed the dagger to the Emperor. To everyone's shock, the Emperor used it to take his own life. Due to the angle, it looked to everyone present as if Reb had murdered him. It was then that Reb realized he had been deceived by Radam. But strangely, his heart began to beat with excitement, and a voice in his head kept repeating, "Need blood. Need more blood." Radam, witnessing the scene, was ecstatic. He could finally avenge 100 years of humiliation. A sacrifice of 1,000 lives will surely appease the souls of my wronged people. Come, Aurelio, kill everyone here and set me free. In an instant, the scene transformed into a living hell through magic. If this continued, there would be no turning back. Lucy's mind was filled with images of the gentle, kind Reb she had always known. Just because he was the male lead of a novel didn't mean he had to follow the original tragic ending. It wasn't fair to him. Fueled by a powerful wish, a flash of light erupted and Lucy broke free from the magic binding her. Sensing danger, Radam prepared to eliminate her. But in that time, Lucy had already reached the rampaging Reb. She gently called his name, then rushed forward and kissed him. Their hearts connected. For a while, she had resented him for always hiding things from her. But now, she understood. She should have taken a step forward sooner. Then Reb wouldn't have had to bear all that pain and loneliness by himself. I'm sorry I let you carry such a heavy burden alone. A tear slipped from her eye and landed on Reb's face, erupting in a brilliant light. Miraculously, the man beneath her was restored. It's not your fault, Lucy. Reb held her tightly. In his entire life, his existence had never been validated. Born with lowly blood and cursed red eyes, he was met with scorn and hatred wherever he went. To survive, he had to be constantly on guard. But even then, he never felt pathetic. It wasn't until he met Lucy that he began to fear losing something. You were the first person to get angry for my sake. The first person who wasn't afraid and didn't blame me, who saw me for who I really was. From that moment on, you were my only light. That's why I was so scared to see you in pain, and even more scared that you would leave me if you knew the truth. Her heart at ease after his explanation, Lucy didn't want them to drift apart again. She bravely responded to his feelings with a kiss of her own. I love you, Reb. They held each other close, wishing the moment could last forever. But they were interrupted by Radam from behind. I see. Now I know why you felt so familiar. You're not from this world, are you? An existence that came through a dimensional gate, not bound by the rules here. But that doesn't matter anymore. You ruined my plan, so you'll pay with your lives. Radam's powerful attack descended upon them, and it seemed like it was all over. But to his shock, they were standing there completely unharmed. It was all too unbelievable. Reb's face was a mask of confusion. Lucy was the first to explain. Do you remember this necklace? It was the first thing you ever gave me. Something to make me think of you wherever I was. I don't know why I have this power, but one thing is for sure, my feelings for you are what's driving it. You gave me this strength. Radam, furious, launched an even stronger attack. But Lucy had discovered how to control her new power. Gripping Reb's hand tightly, she unleashed a powerful blast of her own. And just like that, it was over. On that day, Reb passed the throne to Delmar, hoping he would protect the peace of the Empire and keep its people from the ravages of war. He and Lucy then boarded a carriage bound for the village of Sanan. On the way, they stopped by the Lord's estate to see the Lord and his assistant, who had been so kind to them. It had been so many years that they didn't even recognize the grown-up Reb at first. After catching up, they asked about what had happened in the capital. Lucy, realizing the news hadn't reached this remote town, didn't go into detail, only saying that she and Reb were fine, and that they were returning to their hometown of Sinan for something important. Soon, they reached their destination. Lucy set up a gravestone for her mother, but she left it without a name. After all, she and Reb were the only ones who remembered her. Carving a name would just feel strange. Hearing this, Reb hugged Lucy, full of guilt. I shouldn't have been so selfish back then, erasing your memories. But Lucy had already let it go, understanding why he had done it. If we're going to be together for a long time, we can't keep dwelling on the past and living in pain. From now on, whether it's painful or sad, we'll face it together. Reb was deeply moved, promising to be completely open with her from now on. And right now, the thing he wanted to be most open about was his heart. I love you, Lucy. You are the single ray of light in my dark life. Please, will you let me spend the rest of my life with you? Even Eloise, the original heroine of the novel, came to celebrate with them. Although the story had deviated completely from the original plot, it didn't feel wrong. Lucy was happy she could give the male lead, Reb, a completely different ending. At their wedding, they exchanged sincere and profound vows, promising to protect each other through all hardships, steadfast and unwavering.